And welcome back to another Inside Texas live show. It is our everything you got to know about Texas and Georgia. We're here with John Smith. Pack is back on the channel. I'm your host, Cord Samuels. You can find me, Pack, John, all on Twitter, all having a good time. John's had probably more fun than most this week on Twitter. There's some Texas fans that provided a little bit of ammo to the Georgia side, and so you can't blame them on taking them up on that. But real quick, guys, hop on over to InsideTexas.com. Take advantage of the $1 flash sale. Join for $1 right now. Get great in-depth analysis, great recruiting scoops, and then obviously the boards are mega fun come game day. So hop on over to Inside Texas right now and subscribe for $1 if you haven't done so already. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
I couldn't be better. Could not be better. It is a beautiful. The weather in the state of Georgia this week, it was terribly cold. Like very cold the first couple of days this week. And then today it was in the 70s. Tomorrow it's going to be 74. Game day is going to be beautiful. A wonderful, beautiful, perfect football weather night in Athens. I'm feeling so good, Cord.
Your hair looks great. I just got to say that. We got to talk to hair a little bit. Pack, how are you doing, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
Junior high volleyball or basketball night, running around. I tweeted I was really disappointed that the Frito pies were not in play tonight. That has been my dinner for the last 2.5 months. So outside of that, brother, we're doing good. Got Nash checking in, beat Georgia. I love when it's said like that and spelled like that. Unfortunately, Evan's not going to take us up on the $1 flash sale, but he's still glad to be here. So, yeah, I knew Nash would be here. Nash, I swear I'm going to respond to your text at some point today. Nash and I are talking confidence for old horns and dogs. But no, man, I mean, for me personally, I'll let it rip a little bit. Game scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you, because of what it means for Texas. You know that Kirby Smart and Georgia seem to be peaking at the right time. Again, it's what have you done for me lately type of sport. So Georgia's going to have to line up, do it all again, the way that they did in Starkville last week. But for you, Pac, you know, I know you actually have a soft spot, if you will, for the Georgia defense and how things are done over there, which is why you're here for this show. But talk, man, what is Georgia doing better on the defensive side, and then what are they doing on the offensive side? Maybe some things they weren't doing early in the year that are catching your eye.
Yeah, so I think early in the year, especially on third down, because I know that's something that a lot of Georgia fans will point at in terms of the struggles. I think they've become a little bit more creative in terms of their pressure paths. So just to start, in the first 4 weeks, I think you saw a lot of the same types of third down pressures. Now, you can look this up, and I'm pretty sure you can find some of their installs in their playbooks of this, but they run this concept that's known as eyes, and that's a 3 deep, 2 under. It's just a form of a spot drop. It's basically cover 3, removing the 2 flat defenders. And you saw them run a variation of what an NCAA path is, which is just bringing the star and then bringing the weak linebacker, bringing the strong side linebacker, whether that's CJ Allen, Raylan Wilson, it doesn't matter. And so you saw them run a variation of that a lot the first 4 weeks. And I think you've seen them slowly add more pressures. They've become a little bit more exotic on third down. This past week against Mississippi State, if you go to my page at Pack Talks XO, you're going to see I sent out 3 different blitzes that they had this year, or against Mississippi State. They ran a Tampa 2 stem where they plugged a linebacker and then they wrapped a nose tackle and they wrapped the 4-eye around both of the Mac who was plugging and then the nose tackle. And then you saw later in the game they ran what they call Buddha, which is a cross dog B gap pressure where they're playing cover 1 man free behind it. So I think you've seen them become a lot more expansive in terms of what they're doing on third down, where it doesn't feel like you know what you're going to get anymore. And it helps when you have guys like CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson and Justin Williams and Chris Cole, who are some of the best linebackers in the country. They do an outstanding job in the run game in terms of being stack fit players. Their footwork is always really, really good. If you want teach tape on how to play linebacker in terms of from a stack fit perspective, go watch Georgia. They do it better than literally everyone in the country. So they're really good against the run because of how good their linebackers are, and they've always got blue chips in terms of the defensive line. So I think that's been the real thing that to me is I've seen a noticeable increase in terms of why they've played better defensively in the last couple of weeks. And then in terms of what they're doing offensively, it starts with how well they run the ball. You don't see them put Gunnar Stockton in a lot of positions where it's uncomfortable. He's not being forced to drop back 40 times, and it's not continuously 3rd and 10 where you're getting pressure on you. They're allowed to pick their spots in terms of we're going to let Gunnar eat here because it's 2nd and 3, or we're going to let him eat here because we have some balance in our offense, and we know that guys can't pin their ears back. And I think those are two things for on both sides of the ball that they've done really, really well, especially within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing that I've noticed as well. I mean, Georgia was a little bit basic on on a lot of these looks on 3rd downs, and so far, you really haven't had that in these last couple of weeks. They've looked like the old Georgia. You see the creativity on defense. They're finding ways to get to the pass rusher. They're overwhelming offensive lines at times. And again, things that you really didn't see in the first half. John, I'm going to go same question to you, but on the Texas offense side, obviously there's a lot of talk about Arch Manning, Steve Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, the O-line, Arch Manning, about it all. But Texas, over the last 6 quarters, have definitely played their best offensive football this season. What do you think Texas is doing a little bit better or differently than they were doing early in the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, with Texas, like it clearly starts with this level of football at this time of the year it's not that complicated, right? It literally starts with, can you play complementary football on the offense side of the ball? Do you have any semblance of a run game? Do you have any semblance of RPOs? Do you have any semblance of the ability to motion guys out on a mismatch, and where you put a defense in stress where it's like, okay, now you got to make a decision. Am I playing the run? Am I going to run blitz here? Or am I, going to have to sit back because I'm not sure what they're doing? And it's similar to what Pac said about Georgia, right? It's like college football, good college football teams. I would say the upper echelon of college football teams, they all kind of start in the same way. You start, you do, your spring ball, you do your summer, you do your installs, you start off the season, no matter if you're playing Ohio State Ralligate or Georgia played Clemson last year when, Clemson wasn't that great, but they won the ACC. When you, no matter who you're playing out of the gate, you're going to run a lot of base stuff. Like you're going to run a lot of base stuff. Then as the year goes on, you're installing more, you're basically adding wrinkles. And on the defense side of the ball for Georgia, you're starting to see that, like Pac broke down eloquently. And I think you're starting to see it on the offensive side of the ball for Texas, right? You're starting to see, okay, we've got these skill players. We've got we've got a quarterback that has making his, whatever it is, his 10th start or whatever. And he's starting to get more comfortable. And I think you're in a position with Texas where that run game has really been what's been missing, at least in this SEC schedule. When they started with versus Florida, and then you just kind of went down that schedule, right? I guess Oklahoma looked pretty good, but besides that, it's like you had weeks at Kentucky, you had most of the game versus Mississippi State, where it's like, hey, you just couldn't run the ball. And I think that's where if you're going to beat Georgia, you have to do one of two things. You have to either be elite on 3rd down, like Alabama was in Sanford Stadium earlier this year. You have to be able to keep your offense on the field, or you have to be able to run the ball. And if you can do one of those two things, you can beat Georgia. If you can do both of them, then it's like you're in really good shape. But you have to be able to either be elite on 3rd down, or you have to be able to run the ball. And I think that's what's been going right for Texas. And you saw it versus Vanderbilt. I mean, versus Vanderbilt, they were, 63% on 3rd down, 64%, something like that. It was like very good on 3rd down, could run the football. And that opens up everything else with a lot of what Sark likes to do, right? A lot of motioning out to mismatches, a lot of, running those RPOs. It just opens a lot up when you have a threat to run the ball.
Yeah, Steve wants to run the football. I mean, a lot of people think like, oh, he's an air raid type. Like, no, he wants to run the football. I mean, go look at his better teams at Georgia, or better offenses at Georgia. I mean, those teams are pounding the rock, and like you said, John, that opens up so much. You can go over the top of defenses. Some of those 3 high safety look teams might have to come out of it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, like you said very early on, when you started going there, football is a simple game in a way. I mean, like when you look at the grand scheme of like. Texas can't run the football. Texas can't block, early in the season couldn't pass protect. Like, obviously the quarterback and the offense are going to struggle a little bit. And that's what I've liked about this Georgia team is they've really committed. And I mean, they don't shy away from the ground game. If it's not working for a quarter and a half, 2.5 quarters, they're going to keep trying to pound the rock because that's who they are. And so Texas, I don't know, I don't think we have that luxury. I don't think we're going to be a team that can just line up and play the smash mouth type of football. We're going to have to deceive you with motion and some eye candy, and which is why Sark, in my opinion, this is a Steve Sarkisian Arch Manning game. They're going to have to be in their absolute bag, both of them, not just Arch, not just Sark. And so, there's definitely some nerves, a little bit of anxiety, I feel like, for both fan bases. I think Georgia's obviously, would be the more confident side, just considering how their season's gone, and they've found a way to win these tight ball games. But yeah, I've got Joshy out here calling you out, John. Said you've been running from him. Said stop running from him. So, last year, John and I did have a bet where I ended up having to bark on a YouTube show. And John was right there in the trenches, ready to sing the eyes of Texas if they lost. So, I mean, I will say, I know you don't run. You're the one that proposed the bet. So some would say, if you do any running, it's you run up to us to punk us because you got trapped.
Yeah. Joshy came, he did come in the DMs trying to make a bet on this game.
Okay.
And I'm not running from Joshy. Joshy, I just don't want you to go through what Cord went through last year, where he was having to bark on a recorded live stream with people watching. So, I mean, Joshy, if you want to go through it, we can make a bet, but we'll do that. We'll do that offline.
Be careful, Joshy. I've already dug my heels in pretty deep this week. One of those things where you hit send on a post, and then about 12 seconds later, you're like, I don't know if I should have done that. But I'm staying in the trenches. We're in here. If Texas loses to Georgia, I'll be painting my body red and doing a live show on Sunday. John, you're welcome to join if it turns out that way. But yeah, thanks for you guys being here in the comments, even if you're a Georgia Bulldog, or even if you're a Texas A&M Aggie, Mr. Willard. Appreciate you being here as well. Obviously, I would expect and hope you to be rooting for the Georgia Bulldogs. What's a rivalry if you're out there rooting for us on Saturday and the biggest game of the year for us? But yeah, that's the big thing. And John, you talked about it. Pack, I know you know this, but you look at the 2 games versus Georgia last year and just absolutely flummoxed on the ground versus Kirby in those fronts. Pack, do you see any pathway to Texas running the football and being more successful on the ground this year than they were last year in the SEC title game?
I think it would be in moments. I don't know that it would be consistent. Like, I don't know if you walk away from the game seeing Texas average 4 or 5 yards per carry, but I think you can spit a few 10 to 15 yard runs in there. I do think there are times where you can get, especially just with the way that knowing the structure of how Georgia's linebackers fit runs, especially on things like gap scheme stuff where they've got what's known as an indicator. So just a tight end in the core. Their eyes will always start there. That's just the way, because it just makes playing the way they do a lot easier. So you can do some stuff with split zone and then hitting the perimeter because you'll displace some linebackers. But to me, it's going to be more like specialized plays, more designed plays from the run game that Texas will have more of their explosives there if they do have any. I'm not sure in terms of from just a base outside zone, inside zone duo, what Texas runs on just standard downs. I'm not sure that they'll run the ball very well against Georgia. I know they don't have Jordan Hall, but it's still Georgia. Christian Miller's playing really, really good football for them. Gabe Harris and Quintavious Johnson are really, really good run defending edges, and they do a really good job on gap scheme. They do a really good job on the zone scheme stuff. So I think you're going to have tough sledding. I don't think this is a great run blocking team anyway for Texas. So I would expect if they do have a good run game, to me, a good run game for Texas is just being able to muster 4 or 5 rushes above 10 yards. If you can create just a little bit of explosives to the run game, I think you'd take that if you're a Texas fan.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, again, you're not going to hang your hat being a ground team this year. That is not who Texas is. I don't think there's many ways to turn that around at this point. Like Pat just said, I think you see some situational 7 and 8 yard runs, hopefully 10+ yard runs that could really boost this offense. Some moments where maybe we're not expected to run the ball, a couple of 2nd and 10s. We're going to have to be creative, and Texas isn't just going to be able to line up on 1st and 10, 2nd and 6 and say, okay, here we are. We're going to pick up our 4 or 5. Don't think that that's exactly the blueprint to success in this game. Be creative, use your window dressing, be creative in your sets. And again, the screen game is going to have to be an extension of the ground game to an extent. But Kirby knows that. And if you look at the games last year, Georgia did a really, really good job with our screen game. What is it that Georgia does that makes it so difficult out there on the perimeter for Texas in the screen game that Sark loves so much?
Yeah, it starts with them being really, really physical. You know this if you've ever heard a Kirby Smart press conference. What is he always talking about? He's talking about being physical, strike, shedding, and blocking in terms of blocks. So they run it. It's what they do pretty much every single day. They call it a drill that's called mod bracket. They'll start with it's pretty much just all screen work and getting off of blocks on the perimeter. So it's something that they rep almost every practice. You can go look up the mod bracket drill and you'll find it for Georgia. It's one of the things that they really, really hone in on. It starts with that. It's how much of an emphasis they put on it. It's how physical their corners are. It helps when you do play as much press as they typically do. You learn how to be physical. And then they do a really good job of rallying to the football. They've got linebackers who run 4-4, 4-5, high 4-3s. So they close space really well. They are really well taught. Schumann's the best teacher in the country, if you ask me, in terms of just talking defensive concepts. So that's where it starts for them in terms of how well they handle the screen game. Is they're really well taught. They do a really good job of striking guys and getting off of blocks. And they're really, really physical and really, really athletic.
And I think they do a really good job of just using their eyes, identifying. Obviously, that goes towards their leader and Kirby Smart. They play fast, they play physical, and they oftentimes are looking for it and are ready for it. And that seemed to be the case definitely at DKR last year. They pounced all over the screen game for Texas. Guys, we'll keep talking horns and dogs, but first we're going to hear a word from sponsor Laura Baker.
If you're looking for a home in the Austin area, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. Laura's a part of the elite Andy Allen team at Keller Williams Realty. She's helped Longhorns find their dream homes all over Central Texas. You can just ask our very own Ian Boyd, who moved from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Whether you're searching in Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown, San Marcos, or even parts of the 254 or the 210, Laura has you covered. So call 512-784-0505, or you can email her at laura@andyallenteam.com. She's a Longhorn, a friend of Inside Texas, and the person you need to call to get your next home in Central Texas. Call Laura Baker today. Contact info is in the description.
There you go, John. When you get ready to move over to old Central Texas, we got you the plug on a real estate agent, and that's step one oftentimes.
I used to have an old boss from Round Rock. He had so many good things to say about Round Rock, Texas. So
imagine the golf rounds we could play, brother. You're just right down the road. Imagine the burnt orange and black hoodie.
I don't want to move. I don't want to move out of state just to get beat in golf every week by Cord.
Oh especially. No, we've reverted to like the beginning of our golf days right now. I got to get on the range. Got to do some work. But yeah, guys, appreciate y'all being here in the comments. Go ahead and throw a like on the video if you haven't done so yet. And again,
dog with a Longhorn, that confused me.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
I like the two trolls we got in the comments. Y'all are doing a good job because right now, you could be right. Tech and A&M do look good. Again, I don't think it's time to celebrate a national championship in November. But hey, you know what? A&M's having a little success and they don't know what to do with themselves. Good for them. So yes, I mean Texas is going to have to dial up the best of the Sarkisian screen bag, absolute best of the screen bag, in my opinion.
Just real quick, what Pack hit the nail on the head. Like Georgia, Kirby Smart, every corner, every DB that he recruits has to be, or every DB that he ends up playing. I don't know necessarily about recruits, but it ends up playing at Georgia has to be physical in the run game, and that gives such a +1 advantage in the screen game because you basically have linemen and tight ends pulling out there to try to block those corners, and they just are so physical. And then Glenn Schumann with those off-ball backers, right? It's so hard because Glenn Schumann calls them off-ball backers. They used to be called middle linebackers, whatever, but he calls them off-ball backers. And he has a certain profile that he looks for, and it's so much of that is to basically limit anything within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage from side to side. And so when you have that 7-yard box, guys that are so physical and fast, it's really hard. But that being said, Sark didn't get this job, and he didn't end up, in the positions that he's in without having, the kind of brain that can figure out, what types of calls to call against a team like Georgia. The challenge is just the players got to execute. And so I think like Sark, I think the game plan will be very good. I think to my boy Axe's point, I think he will. I think there's a lot that he can take from some of the stuff that Mike Bobo has done with a heavy screen game for Georgia this year, and use it kind of against Georgia in some ways. But players got to execute, and that's the thing. Is like that's what's. And so I will say for Georgia's defense, it's the same thing, right? Like I haven't had a ton of confidence all year that the Georgia defense can execute in some of those situations consistently, especially in the first half. So it's going to be, who can show up on Saturday and actually make the play. Because I think both coaches will have excellent game plans.
Yeah, just to touch on what Two-Pete, I think Ace had said about the Fox screen. Georgia fans should remember that because Sark ran that last year in the SEC championship. If you remember, I think it would have been the second or third drive. Isaiah Bond got called for a PI on it, and it was right off the tips of Elm. And Texas fans will remember it really well because they ran it against Florida last year. They ran it against Arkansas last year. They haven't ran it this year just because they haven't been a super heavy screen team up until about Mississippi State. But I do think if you do see a Fox screen, it would be in this game because I do think you've just with the usage of screens in the past 2 games, it does open yourself up for this. And it's very similar to how Georgia did this because I want to say the first Fox screen was called against Ole Miss for Georgia. I'm sure John or someone in the comments will correct me. But up until that game, you saw a lot of the same screens where it was just simple swing screens, bubble screens, that stuff. And then eventually they leaked, I want to say it was Noah Thomas.
That was Mississippi State,
Yeah, and I know also it was Noah Thomas against Florida. I can't remember who it was against Ole Miss. But
that was Noah Thomas too. Yeah, that was a 30-yard completion,
Yeah, so you saw them build to it. And to Ace's point, I do think there is a chance for something like that against Georgia because they are slowly building to that.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is going to have to find ways to manufacture yards, sustain a couple of drives. Georgia's not going to hand them, in my opinion, too many explosive plays. They will be their usual aggressive and physical selves, but I don't think Texas is going to get behind the Georgia defense too often. If they do, they better take advantage. So screen game, long story short, screen game is going to have to be a big part of this. Evan, I don't think Sark's seat would get warm if he loses this game anywhere outside of Twitter. You know how people are on there and what they would say and how they overreact to every game.
People, and not to interrupt you, but people really, if you're not a Texas fan, you don't remember where Texas was before Sark showed up, right? Like, I mean, there were some years. Yeah, I don't think Sark's seat is getting warm for this game.
I had another guy tell me today that Texas would lose and be exposed, as the frauds that they are. And my thinking is like, that's a comment that had to be brought out after Florida. You know what I mean? Like losing Ohio State, losing at Georgia. And I'm not sitting here coping or getting ready for a loss. I'm just saying, those aren't the losses that concern me as far as, where my program's at. But again, Twitter, funny place. Both teams have elite rosters. November's about elite determination. Both have shown that they're hard to kill. Yeah, bring 60 minutes to Texas fight and we will win. It's going to take every bit of that, man. It might take more. I don't want to do any more overtime games, but we've shown that we're not immune to them. Officer Sark coming to arrest Kirby. Kirby probably gets a couple calls in this game that he may not should have get. But hey, when you fight the good fight week in and week out, do what you got to do. John, I almost want to screenshot this. But I'm too dumb to know how to do that from my computer. Just in case your hypothetical doesn't exactly play out the way you see. But yeah, obviously Texas has work to do, and then y'all are set up in a pretty good position. Pop-Tart Bowl though, is that affiliated with the SEC? Can anybody help me out there? No, I didn't think so. It's a shame, man. I'm a sucker.
I wish it was. I mean, I'd rather have the Pop-Tart Bowl than the Gasparilla or whatever it is now.
How do concessions work? Is it like Pop-Tarts only? Is it standard concessions? Are we like collabing the two?
I just need to know what flavor of Pop-Tarts can I get at the Pop-Tart Bowl at the concession stand.
Well, it's all of them, right? Like
surely they're not limiting,
They need to have like pipes on the wall dispensing every flavor. Like it's got to be a full setup.
Hasn't the mascot changed what like flavor they are the past 2 years? Like, wasn't it like blueberry last year and strawberry the year before? If you're going to change that, surely you've got like the entire package of.
Surely. Yeah. I think I'm looking at, I need to look up when the Pop-Tart Bowl is. I might go to the Pop-Tart Bowl this year. That feels like something I need
Those are always really good games too.
I need to go check out the Pop-Tart Bowl and report back on the concessions. We'll try to make that happen.
Because this was the Iowa State Miami game last year.
Yeah,
that was a good game.
John, is Lucky Lawson, is he on path to play in this game tonight? I know Texas has no injuries on the injury report, so I didn't look at your side.
Lawson Lucky is he, for those who don't know, took a massive hit versus Mississippi State, got knocked out of the game. He actually wanted to go back in the game. And he did pass at the stadium in the locker room. He passed all the protocol. They probably could have put him back in the game, but no way in hell they were doing that for safety reasons, but also just for optics. Like in today's college football, you're not putting a kid that got knocked out cold back in the game. But he has every day. Georgia had him in the protocol. They do all the testing for concussion, etc., and he's been practicing. So he was probable on last night's report, probable again, and I think he's going to play. Now, how much he plays, I think depends on how the game goes. I don't expect to see him necessarily out there the first snap, and I think he will definitely be limited. But I do expect him to play.
It's a good player. I mean, but obviously you've got Oscar Delp, you've got other options in there to give us.
Ellis Williams,
that Texas defense.
I think Texas is about to learn Ellis Williams' name real quick. True freshman, he's 6'7", 260 something pounds, and really.
Yeah, that he's a freak.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. It feels like Georgia. I mean, again, these young dogs that they're breaking in on defense, they're growing up, and then on the offense too. It's not just your guys, your frontline guys. There are multiple ways for Georgia to hurt you on the offensive side of the ball. That gives me a lot of pause, man, because you can run the ball. You have about 15 different tight ends you can throw to. Young receivers are coming along. Noah Thomas is getting involved in the offense, and so there's that Georgia offense. I mean, if they're able to run the ball, it becomes quite formidable for sure. John, what are the couple things that the Georgia offense is doing really well and that provide a challenge for opponents every Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're starting to do is they're starting similar to the defense that Pac talked about earlier, but they're starting to layer things, right? And what ends up happening at this point in the season is Georgia has they've utilized last year Georgia was 102nd in the country in rush yards per game, which still blows my mind that Georgia won the SEC, averaging 120 rush yards a game, 102nd in the country. Like it blows my mind. This year, Kirby Smart said that they were making two things a huge priority that they struggled with last year, which was running the ball and stopping the run. That was kind of we're going all in on that. And what's been happening is Georgia's been creative with running the ball. So they've run a lot of jet sweeps. They've run some, kind of some of these reverse looks. They've done a lot of RPOs. And I think what's making them harder to defend is Gunnar Stockton has been really, really good in the screen game and the intermediate game. His deep ball, not great. But the intermediate and the screen game has been really good. And then they've started layering in RPOs and started layering in these wrinkles with these jet sweeps where it's like, okay, well now, you think the look is this kind of, jet sweep they've been running like all year. Well, now, it's a totally different, it's a wheel route or something that they end up, running from that same look. And so that's what's making it hard. Also, I would say that Georgia's skill players are coming into their own, right? Noah Thomas was MIA most of the year, and he was MIA because Colby Young was getting a ton of targets. Colby Young was Georgia's, leading receiver. He and Zachariah Branch were the two main guys. Colby Young lost him to a season-ending injury, and Noah Thomas has started to get going because of that. Right, he's a bigger target, and but he's also started to get going because of what Pac was saying earlier. Georgia's just started layering, so now it's like, all right, well, Georgia's been running the same play or same look over and over. Well, now they've got a different personnel on the field, so now they've got Lawson Lucky lined up, as almost like a slot receiver in some cases, and they're running a different play from the same look that they've been giving you all year. So that's one. I think what Texas fans really, 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 really have to look out for is Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens are, when they get going, one or the other, it's tough. If both of those guys get going, both of those running backs, it's going to be really tough for Texas. So I think for me, it's that layered look is going to be confusing for Texas. And the run game is just Georgia. Versus Mississippi State, Georgia's offensive line they've been getting better week over week. And then I think versus Mississippi State, they just, it's kind of like they just took that shit personal. I mean, it was like you watch some of those plays, you're like, it's like road graders out there a lot of times. And Nate Frazier, running for 150 something yards. And so I think that's going to be a big thing for Texas. Texas defense built to stop the run. Texas has, you look at the roster on paper, has all the talent in the world to slow this Georgia offense down. But it's going to be about eye discipline. It's going to be about playing sound gaps versus the run, and just limiting, those screenplays from turning into explosives, or limiting that, kind of inside zone for all of a sudden going for 20 or 30 yards for Georgia. That's going to be the challenge for Texas.
Absolutely. They're going to chip and chip and chip in that ground game. They're inevitably going to break off a couple. Hopefully there are no 30-yarders in there. But, yeah, they're good enough. Those backs are dang good. They complement each other very, very well, and you have another line that's getting better and healthier. We'll keep going at it, guys. We're going to hear a word from our last sponsor of the night, Mr. David McClellan.
Big financial decisions don't have to feel overwhelming. There's someone who can guide you every step of the way. David McClellan is a fiduciary financial advisor with Forum Financial, and he's working closely with his clients as a true financial life coach, guiding every aspect of your financial journey with expertise and care. If his name sounds familiar, that's because David was a swimmer at Texas and a member of several national championship teams. Today, he channels that same championship mindset into helping people win with their finances. David specializes in financial planning, and he's contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. And right now, David is offering viewers a free intro consultation to assess your financial situation. Do not miss this chance to get personalized guidance from a trusted expert. To schedule your free consult, email David at dmcclellan@forumfinancial.com, or you can call him directly at 312-933-8823. The contact info is in the description.
Alrighty, guys. Pac, just heard John break down an offense for Georgia that's doing really, really good things right now, having a lot of success. Definitely multiple in how they're attacking, but what are you seeing out of Georgia that makes them pretty tough to defend?
Yeah, I think John said it really, really well. Me and a friend, Clint, you know him, Cord, we do the Pack and Clint show every Tuesday, and everything that John mentioned is something that I had talked about with the Texas defense in terms of what they need to do. I talked about it as a checklist almost, where you got to first stop the inside zone game. They're not going to run a whole lot of outside zone, wide zone, whatever you want to call it, but they'll run a lot of inside zone, split zone, duo. You've got to do a good job of stopping that first. You can't let them lean on you, because if they can lean on you for 4 yards a carry, the game's pretty much over right there.
Yep.
So that's step one. The second thing is you have to handle the screen game. Texas hasn't done a great job the past 2 or 3 weeks in terms of, especially on the perimeter, just getting off of blocks and then tackling in space. They haven't done a great job of taking good angles either. So that's step two for what Texas needs to do. And then step 3 is John said it really well. Gunnar Stockton's done a really good job in terms of the intermediate area. I think he's done a really good job at getting to that third window dig, where you're getting to a backside, where you're getting to the backside of a full field concept, and you're hitting whether that's Zachariah Branch or whether it was Colby Young or now Noah Thomas or Dylan Bell, whoever it is on the backside running the dig. He's done a really good job of being able to get there and hit that. And then he does a really good job of just taking what's there. I think that shows up in his turnovers. I think he's got maybe 2 interceptions all year, and one of them was a drop by Noah Thomas in against Florida. So he does a really good job of taking care of the ball, and that's something that they do a really good job generally. Georgia, you'll see them; they're very willing to take the slant, the hitch for 7 yards on first down, get into second and short, and run the ball, and be able to get into third and manageables, because they aren't really a team that wants to be in third and long. I think you saw this. You saw why against Florida, because now Florida is a little bit different because Ron Roberts is one of the more creative guys in terms of the pressure paths and all the different things he'll do. So that's a little bit different. But you saw that Florida was able to get pressure on Stockton decently well on third down. I know they had a sack in there at some point. Had a couple of pressures, I want to say, if my memory serves me correctly. So they do a really good job of staying out of third and really long, and that allows them to be a little bit more diverse in terms of what they're doing. Where, in contrast, not to do the thing with Texas, but when you're in third down a lot and you're in third down and long, you look at what Florida did to them. They had 6 sacks, probably should have been 10. Teams can be as exotic as they want in terms of their pressures because they know you can't run the ball. You're allowed to play too high, and you can play all the different too high variations you want, whether that's bracket coverage, whether that's base quarters, whether that's Tampa, whether that's cover 2. It doesn't matter. You're allowed to do all the different stuff that you want when you can stop the run. So that's where it starts for Georgia. They do a really good job of staying in third and short, and then doing a really good job of finding their playmakers and making good decisions with the ball. And as John said, they have 2 really, really good running backs. Chauncey Bowens and Nate Frazier are really explosive, and you can't do some of the stuff that Texas did against Mississippi State and Kentucky and have success.
No doubt, man. And I think they do such a good job about getting themselves in third and short and third and medium at worst. And then, like you just said, Gunner's been so good in the short game, the quick game, intermediate as well. And they're not a team that's going to sit there and be auto pass on a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, even a 3rd and 5. You know what I mean? Like they'll still run inside zone and pick it up. So yeah, Texas is going to have to win first downs. You got to put them behind the sticks. I definitely agree with you there, Pat. You cannot let Georgia get away with running the football. 4 yards a carry here is a quick death sentence. I can't wait to scroll down and see what someone just typed. John, while I'm doing that, can you answer this question for our friend Woodcrest?
Hey, Woodcrest. Yeah, 102. That is going to be – so that's the open end of Sanford Stadium by the end zone. If you're on row 1, it's going to be tough to see the far end, the close end of the stadium when teams are on that end of the field. So I'd recommend if you're going to be in 102 that you're in about row 15 or higher. You'll be good.
There you go, man. Hopefully that works out for you, our friend Woodcrest. All right, Mr. Grimes is asking a question for you, Pack. Obviously, you see Texas stud edge rusher Colin Simmons really, really taking off these last couple of weeks, playing his best football since, in my opinion, he's been on campus. But, Pack, how does Georgia game plan for Colin?
Yeah, so in terms of – it kind of depends because everything's based around your protection rules, right? If you're a team that wants to play big on big, you're probably then your default is going to end up being we're just going to chip with the back when we need to. We're gonna see how it goes with Monroe Freeling and is it Ernest Green right now?
Yeah, Ernest Green. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Ernest Juan. I'm guessing
Juan Gaston. Yeah, it's Juan Gaston.
Yeah, so it might start with just seeing how they can handle him one-on-one, and if it's not going well, you may send some chip help. If Georgia's a team that is really comfortable going into slide protection rules, you can do that, and that helps a lot against speed rushers because you naturally set the edge a little bit more with your tackles. It's a lot harder to bend the hoop just because of the mechanics of the slide. You can do that. You could, if it really comes to it, you could go into 6-man pass pro where you're keeping a tight end in there and you're double teaming him. There's a lot of different things you can do. A lot of it's pretty variable. And it'll also depend on what Texas does with Simmons, right? If they're, you've seen this a little bit more recently where they'll line him up over a guard, they'll line him up over a center, they'll move him around a lot more. So that kind of changes up how you end up having to adjust your protection rules. So I'm not sure there's one answer for that. It's pretty hard to say. It would just depend on what does Georgia feel comfortable with in terms of their protection rules, and then how does the game go, and how do they feel like the game's going with him, and do they need to adjust? And then if they need to adjust, then it kind of goes into what I was talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there, man. They've done a really good job of lining him up in multiple places, letting him attack from different positions. And that's what worries me, man, is right here. Gunner's legs on third downs. I don't want to say if the game's going to come down to that, but man, Texas better have a plan, keeping their eyes on Gunner Stockton on third downs. I think this could be a really, really big game. I'm old school, man. It's going to come down to, winning first downs, keeping Georgia behind the chains, winning first downs on offense, being in more third and shorts than Georgia is, and then being efficient in those third downs. Of course, you can add turnovers and running the football and all that good stuff to it. But yeah, this is a big fear for me. Is Gunner his legs on third down? Pack, is that something where I'm just being a little silly, or is that a worry Texas should legitimately have?
I think it's always a worry when you have an athletic quarterback. Again, not to do another promo, but we talked about this on the Tuesday show. There's a couple of times where Cutter Boley against Kentucky, Cutter Boley for Kentucky, does a really good job of navigating the pocket. And Gunner Stockton is a pretty twitchy athlete, twitchier than Boley. And Boley a couple of times made one cut and is able to leave the pocket and get a couple of pretty big third down conversions with his legs or getting them into fourth and short. So for Texas, yeah, you have to be pretty cognizant of his legs. You can't let a sack. You can't let yourself go from 4th and 15 to now 4th and 1, right? Because again, Georgia's got a really good offensive line. Most times they're going to get that 4th and 1. So it's obviously got to be a worry. Now you can do a lot of different things to account for the legs. And that I could spend like 4 hours talking about how you play against a mobile quarterback, whether that's from the odd mirror stuff that Georgia's made really popular, or whether it's from playing one double rat where you're dropping 3 and you have 2 natural spies, or just playing zone coverage. You can do a lot of different things, but that it turns into a battle of execution at that point. So I do think you have to be worried, but it's also one of those things where you feel like you should be prepared for it.
Yeah, you got to know that is coming. I mean, we just saw Diego. You got to think, it's maybe not as high volume as Diego Pavia, but I mean, like, I'm talking about like design runs rather, but he's going to be involved. And especially my big concern is third and shorts, passing downs, Gunner scrambling, extending drives, and then designed runs as well on some of the third and shorts, third and medium stuff. I don't know. Any chance, guys, that Texas's passing attack is clicking for 4 quarters and Kirby's halftime adjustments just won't matter? Find that to be a low percentage chance, but you never know.
I mean, listen, I think that could absolutely happen, and that could absolutely happen, and you could still lose the game. I think you're gonna have to run the ball, and I don't say that lightly. I just mean like the Ole Miss was a good example, right, where Ole Miss, their passing game was clicking. Now Georgia is not. I don't think there's any way. Well, I don't know. I've seen the Texas defense give up a decent amount of yards and a decent amount of points the last couple of weeks. So I think there is a way, but like I think the challenge is this Georgia team gets better as the game goes on. And that hasn't always been the case for Georgia defenses. There have been times where it's just been like, hey, the Georgia defense suffocates you in the first half, and the offense comes out in the third quarter and basically sits on the ball and kind of Kirby death marches you. And then it's like Tennessee in 2022. It's a 27-13 game, and you really weren't in the game because Georgia just controlled the ball and suffocated you from the beginning. This team doesn't do that, right? Like, but what this team does is the halftime adjustments are a real thing, but they also, as the game goes on, for whatever reason, I wish they could start it from the beginning. And I do kind of agree with what Nash is saying in the comments. The halftime adjustments are a myth. I wish they could start from the beginning and play the way that they have been playing, you know, especially like mid third quarter through the end of games, because they just figure stuff out. And I think a lot of that is to Pack's, like the very beginning of this. I think a lot of it is like I just think the Georgia defensive staff is good enough that they start giving quarterbacks in the second half. They figure out what offenses are trying to do, which mismatches they're motioning out to, and all that stuff. And they rotate personnel and they rotate looks, and they just confuse an offense in the second half. And they have guys that are good enough to cut off those mismatches or have somebody else line up on them. So, but that being said, I think this is going to be a 4-quarter game. I don't believe personally that either offense is really going to be clicking for the entire game. I think it's going to be, you know, maybe there's one offense that comes out better than the other. I think there's going to be that middle 8 where, you know, it's probably going to be a rock fight between the middle of the second quarter through the middle of the third quarter. And then it's going to be, you know, which team can close in the end is my opinion.
Yeah. I hope it's that close. Go ahead, Pack.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I would say – I don't think it's a high chance. Now, I will say I do think this is one of the less complex Georgia defenses that you've seen from a coverage standpoint. Generally, on first down, you're going to get one of two. You get really like 3 things from them right now. You get a lot of what they call mint for mod, which is just their 3 down front with the jack that everyone likes, and then where they're basically playing quarters behind it. And then you get a lot of three strong buzz, or what they would call, I think they now call that sprite, which so they're not exactly they're not exactly what they were last year or 2 years ago, where they're running just a ton of different stuff. Where in one game you'll see them start out in bracket, and then they'll run switch, and then they'll run mod, and then they'll run some version of cover 3, and then they'll run 2-man, and then they'll run man. And you know, they're not that this year. They're fairly basic in terms of what they're doing in the secondary. And part of that is, and I think John can speak to this, they're really young back there.
Yeah.
And I think part of it's also, to speak to what Two-Pete's saying, I don't think that the safety play has been great this year, even from KJ Bolden. I think he's been fine. I don't think he's been great, though. And I think some of it is just they play with their vision on the quarterback a lot. And that's not something you see a lot from Georgia teams. It's not something you see a lot from a lot of quarters teams. Like if you go watch Florida or Oregon and you just spend the entire time just looking at the difference between the safety's eyes and where they're looking, you'll see they don't play the way a lot of traditional quarters teams do. And I think that's given them a bit of problems because they can be late with their eyes getting to receivers. And you've seen this with their safeties getting beat. You can even go back to KJ Bolden getting beat on a deep over against Florida on like the second drive right after the interception. I want to say this was. So I do think there is an opportunity for Texas to have explosives in the pass game, but this is still the best defensive staff in the country. They'll eventually find solutions. We saw this against Ole Miss, where I think it was the first 5 drives were touchdowns, and then the next 3 was something like 20 yards total. They figure out ways to adjust, and they can figure some stuff out. And I don't think, like, to me, if the way that Texas has to win is by their passing game is because of their pass game, it needs to be very similar to what Alabama did, where you jump all over Georgia very early and you go up 2 to 3 scores, and then you just like pray that you get enough stops late in that game. That's kind of what it is to me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I agree with John. You do need to get a run game, or you need another really, really good defensive
Well,
performance.
yeah, turnovers would help, right? There's a lot. Like you got to create some
Like
havoc on the
your
defense side of the ball.
defense needs to play really well if you're not going to run the ball, and because I don't think this Texas passing game is going to be what the Ole Miss one was.
I don't think we see the same success on the perimeter in the screen game that Ole Miss had either. Would love to be wrong. I just don't think we see that. But no,
Yeah.
John said in the beginning, like, what'd you say? You have to, one, run the football,
or be elite on third down.
Be elite on third
down.
downs.
You just got to be able to you got to be able to stay on the field, keep the chains moving, or you got to be able to run the ball.
Yeah.
Or I'll add one more. You have to put on an elite defensive performance to be in the game for. Now Texas has struggled badly running the football, haven't been great up until Vandy on third downs, and I think even Texas fans can admit by now, we don't have an elite complete defense. The front seven may be pretty dang solid, but even the linebackers have had their issues in recent weeks in pass coverage, and so I get why there's hesitancy when picking people looking at Texas's chances in this game. I get why there's hesitancy in picking Texas to win. But let's do keys real quick. Give me 2 keys, John, for Georgia on offense, 2 keys on defense. That leads the Dogs to victory.
Yeah, 2 keys on offense. Georgia has been really good in pass protection for most of the SEC schedule, but you gotta keep Simmons and Burke and Hill and those guys, like you got to keep them from creating havoc at the line of scrimmage. Keep Gunnar Stockton on schedule and not. He's a very athletic guy, but like any quarterback, if you put him under pressure in this kind of situation, can be tough. So limit the pressures from Texas. And for me, I'm going to say a key is Georgia has found a lot more success over the last few weeks offensively because they've started using the tight ends. And I think those tight ends are so key to this offense going from a good offense to an offense that is very, very difficult to stop. So I think Georgia's going to have to continue to use the tight ends. We have a hat that I sent to Georgia's tight end coach, Todd Hartley. He talked about it. He gave us a shout out in a press conference. It says, "Run the damn 13 personnel." And that's what I think Georgia has to do. Like put all 3 of those tight ends out there, run the damn 13 personnel. I think that's going to be key. On defense, the safeties that Pac mentioned, like, listen, you've got Georgia. These guys aren't necessarily young. There's a couple of young guys, but you got like Kyron Jones is a good example. Kyron Jones, before this year, his 2 years at Georgia, he played 33 total snaps. He's played 209 this year. And that's not, maybe it's just this time, right? But you've got him. You've got DeMello Jones, played 21 snaps last year. He's played 225 this year. Ellis Robinson, 50 snaps last year, over 300 this year. And these corners and the secondary safety specifically, what Georgia lost was, I'll say this, every year Georgia has had guys in the secondary that have made the leap. And it has been usually it's a boundary corner. So it's Kamari Lassiter or Keely Ringo. You have guys made a leap. And then you have a guy that's playing safety that's either already arrived or he's making the leap. So you had Malachi Starks back there. You had Dan Jackson, even like last year, you had Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson. This year, the safety position specifically, the guys just haven't made a leap. So somebody's got to make a leap in this game. And what I mean by that is like, KJ Bolden specifically, like Dalen Everett's got to be the guy that he was supposed to be this year. That he's getting better. Our corners have absolutely improved, but the safeties behind them, especially because Georgia, they do a lot of things where they're going to have a boundary corner over here and then they're going to bracket and try to take away like quarters and like they do just a lot of complicated stuff in the back end. And when you have guys who haven't played a lot of snaps, that complexity sometimes just causes issues. And that's what we've seen. And so you got to pull that together. Safety play is key on defense. And then I'll just say like Georgia this week, I have heard, I'll just drop something here. But this week, Georgia has put in a few different pressure packages and looks to confuse Arch Manning and the Texas offense. that they haven't run a lot this year. Sending guys, like corner blitzes is a good example that they haven't run a lot this year. And I think Georgia's got to get a lot more exotic with their pressure packages. So safeties and you can't just line up and expect, running a lot of the same stuff you've been running is going to get Texas off schedule. So I expect them to run a lot.
We saw a corner blitz last year at DKR that led to a pretty big play for the Georgia defense from, I believe, Dalen Everett. Yeah, Pack, same for you, but a couple of keys on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball for Texas if they want to win Saturday.
Yeah, just really quickly, speaking about that corner blitz, if anyone wanted to know the call on that, it's called Cut Cyclone. It's part of their Big 12 pressure. They're running quarters to the field. It's actually a two-man concept that they're running. It's a bunch sort that they call Clipper. And then they're running just man into the boundary. It's one of my favorite pressures that they run. So just if anyone wanted to know what that call was, there you go. So for my two keys for the Texas offense, I think you got to get Arch Manning's legs involved in the run game because, like I said, I don't think the traditional run game is going to have much success. So if Arch can extend some plays, if he can create some explosives through the pass game just by extending plays, if he can turn what would be an incompletion into a 5-yard gain with his legs, that could be a pretty big deal for Texas. So you got to have a good day with Arch's legs, and then you got to at least give him some time. You got to protect. It can't be Florida. And on that note, I would stay the hell away from condensing. I think you saw this last year against Georgia where they had a lot of success bringing external pressures, whether that was a safety, the star, corners. Florida destroyed Texas with this stuff. There's I think I have about like a 10 like post thread of all of different external pressures that Florida brought, and they gave Texas a lot of problems. So you got to stay away from condensing against a team like this, who does have a lot of. They may not have as dense of a playbook as they did a couple years ago, but they still they probably have more than everyone in the country because that's just what Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann and the Saban family does. They have really dense playbooks. They're going to have a lot of answers. So stay the hell away from condensing. Just play more spread. Give Arch more answers pre-snap. Give Sark more answers pre-snap. You can figure some things out as you go. So those are my two keys offensively for Texas. And then defensively, you can't have missed assignments. You can't have stuff like against Kentucky where you're just misaligned and you're giving up 15-yard runs because you've got two gaps that are wide open on the same side. You can't do stuff like that against Georgia. So you got to be assignment sound. And then you need Pete Kwiatkowski to be a little bit more complex. I don't think for the third straight time against Mike Bobo, you can come out in the same cover 3 soft shell stuff and expect that he's not going to have answers. At some point, Mike Bobo, despite what a lot of people on Twitter say, he is really good at his job. He's a really good coordinator. He knows what he's doing. If you give him the same look 3 times in a row, I don't think you're going to have a lot of success. I think he eventually will find a lot of answers. Those are my two keys for Texas defensively. Be assignment sound, and you have to throw the kitchen sink at a really good Georgia offense.
Well said, man. That everyone talks about the chess match between Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian. I think the even more important one is Bobo versus Coach Coach PK. That's going to be really, really big. Can Texas stop them inside the red zone? Can Texas move the football enough to have opportunities inside the red zone? Who wins, guys?
You want a score prediction, or you just want to win straight up?
You can give a score prediction. That's more fun.
Texas 38, Georgia nothing.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, Evan beat me to it. Evan beat me to it in the comments. No, that's been that's our running theme for Georgia. Is we just basically tell everybody we're going to lose. No, I think, man. So Mike Bobo, and I'll make this very brief. But yes, the situation, Mike Bobo if you look at Georgia's offense in 2023, 2024 for Georgia, the Georgia offense was an absolute anomaly from the last 2021, 2022, 2023, and now 2025. And I think it was because Georgia couldn't run the football. And I think I think Georgia, Carson Beck was a liability at quarterback for Georgia. All the talent in the world, but you're even seeing it in Miami. I think mentally, the mental toughness, when things started breaking down, it just all broke down. And you saw it versus Texas last year in Austin. I mean, that Georgia defense, like, just saved Georgia, because Carson Beck was, throwing picks all over the place. So I think Mike Bobo, he has a machine to beat this Texas defense. I think this game's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be a game that definitely goes into the fourth quarter as a game. But I think Mike Bobo and the Georgia offense is going to be the key. I think Gunnar Stockton, I think the running game, I think those skill players. I think the Georgia defense is just going to be able to keep Texas off the field enough for those guys to really start to lean on Texas defense. And I think it's going to end up, I think this feels like one of those, kind of like 27-20 kind of games where it's a game, but in the second half, I do think it may turns into a little bit of a rock fight. I don't think you're going to see Mississippi State and Texas in this one, or Vandy in Texas. I think there's going to be both teams are going to come out looking pretty good, and then I think things are going to settle in, and I think it's just going to be a fist fight, and I think Georgia's going to win 27-20.
27-20. Last year you didn't do the whole Texas is going to smoke us last year. Maybe you did. Maybe
last year. No, I didn't know. Last year I did. Last year I said, don't be surprised.
That's what it was. That's what
Kirby Smart and that number one, that back-to-back national champion Georgia team shows up in Austin. Because it just felt last year that's where that game was trending for Georgia defensively, right? You just felt last year you had Jalen Walker. You had guys where you're like, these guys are too good. Malachi Starks, Dan Jackson. You had C.J. Allen out there. You had Raylan Wilson out there. You had, you just had guys where you're like, all right, this defensive side of the ball is too good to not put it all together at some point. That's what I felt last year. I'm
just saying, you might have jinxed yourself though. You broke out the reverse jinx on yourself.
Maybe no, but I think this year is the offensive side of the ball. I think the offensive side of the ball has they have flashed a lot. I think that offensive line especially. I think you just got too many athletic big bodies to not put it all together in a game like this.
It's gonna be a good one, man. I definitely think it goes 4 quarters. What about you, Pac?
Yeah, last year in both games, I picked Georgia to win. I just didn't like the matchup for Texas. I still don't like the matchup much for Texas. I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable and confident picking Texas if you didn't have the defensive performances that they had against Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. There's just a lot of questions with how they're going to play. And when you have that many questions and when a team doesn't execute consistently the way Texas has really struggled to, it's really hard to pick them against a team like Georgia, who will execute, even if it's not for the full 4 quarters. For the full 4 quarters, they're going to show up when it matters, and they'll show up in the critical moments. I think Mike Bobo is going to have a great day. I really do. I think at that point even a stalemate for Georgia ends up in a win, and I think you probably get somewhere near a stalemate in terms of Sarkisian versus Schumann and Smart. Maybe Schumann and Smart win that one. I wouldn't be surprised by that. So I'll take Georgia 34 and Texas 23.
Got Georgia winning and covering. Both of you gentlemen do. And Evan, I mean, he makes a good point. Texas has not been very good on the road. The best road performance at Ohio State, and still lost that game. Texas played better there big time than they did in the Swamp, or than they did in Kentucky or down in Starkville. But
Yeah.
I'm already standing in the trenches. I can't back down now. The closer that we get to kickoff, I do get less confident. When Pack sent me a message earlier this week, it's like, what do you got for me? I'm like, well, it's not what I had for you about 48 hours ago when I was feeling a lot better. I do like what Georgia has done on defense the last couple of weeks. I think, again, it's not the full complex, the full, full range of complexity that you've seen from a Schumann Smart defense in the past, but they're doing more than they were previously. And then again, I mean, something about this defense, I just think, it matches up well with Steve Sarkisian. But I'm going to give Sark credit. I do think he deserved to win in the SEC title game last year against this Georgia team. I think he coached well enough. He had a game plan that was good enough to win that game. I'm going to trust that he does it again. The bye week being the difference, Arch's growth. Again, no turnovers here. That is going to be key. If Texas loses a turnover battle, I don't think there's a single way in the world that they win this game. Maybe even if we're neutral, Texas probably needs to find a way to steal a turnover here somewhere, set up a short field. But I'm going 27-23 Texas. I can't back down now. Give me the difference being the Texas red zone defense. And then, we haven't seen him in a couple of weeks, but we're going back to Ryan Niblett being a difference maker at some point in this game. Not necessarily a touchdown, but maybe it's a 30-yard return to give us a 30-yard field, 40-yard field. And again, I have this 50-50, being honest with you. It's going to be a very, very tough game. I do think it'll be tight in the fourth quarter. You've only seen Georgia really blow Texas out in the Steve Sarkisian era there, that first game at DKR, and that was even an 8-point game very early in that fourth quarter. So I think the Texas shows up, but again, like Pac's kind of concerned with we don't know what to expect from the defense, man. You saw some coverage buzz. You just saw some discipline issues. You saw bad tackling, poor angles, poor containment. And so if Texas can contain Georgia on the edges, Georgia's backs, Gunnar Stockton, are not able to pick up chunk plays. Texas does well in containment. It'll be a 4-quarter game. I can definitely see a path to Georgia winning and to Georgia covering. But again, when I've already put my, the color of my skin essentially on the line for the Sunday show, with it going to the red paint, I can't back down now. So I don't sound very confident, but I'm still picking Texas to win this one. I think it'll be a 4-quarter war either way. But I understand what John's saying. Georgia gets a lead late in that game. That clock's going to shrink pretty dang quick, man. They're really, really going to make us probably go the length of the field at some point to either rally or go ahead in that game. So can Texas do it? I don't know. I think we see a classic at Sanford Stadium.
Well, I want to talk real quick to my boy Nash. I saw in the comments where he said that Texas is 13-2 in the last 15 road games, which is great. Georgia is 51-2 in the last 53 home games in Sanford Stadium.
Decent.
So I think that's pretty good. Going back to 2017, it's a loss to South Carolina and then that loss to Alabama earlier this year, which true freshman wide receiver drops a touchdown pass that could have won that game. You got a true freshman guard that gets blown up on a 4th down play that could have won that game. So I think it's going to be a close game. And I will say I would be more nervous if it wasn't inside Sanford Stadium, but I like your pick to go. So these teams, if you look at their roster, if you look at their coaching staff, it wouldn't surprise. I don't think it would surprise anyone if Sark took a bye week and showed up and all of a sudden like, oh shit, this was like Texas, I haven't seen that to be confident enough to pick them, but I wouldn't be surprised in this league. Because y'all saw it at Florida. I mean, God, it's like, and Texas, Texas, it's like, shoot, you had San Jose State, you had UTEP, you had Sam Houston in a bye week. And then you go to Florida, and I think you just see what happens in some of these leagues. So it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm excited to see this game. Very excited.
Like you said, and like we said, half the show, you got to be able to run the damn ball, man. And that is a big question mark for this team. Pack said it, if we can have 4 10-yard runs, like that's what we're calling a successful day. Is times are a little bit dire as far as Texas picking up yards on the ground. But I can guarantee you there's going to be a couple of big downs late in this game where maybe it's a 3rd and short or a 4th and 1. And Texas is staring this game and potentially their playoff hopes in the face. And it's like, can you be man enough to go pick up the tough yards on the ground? I have my doubts. I mean, just being real about it, that's where we've seen Texas have to be really cute and creative in the past and how they pick up those first downs. probably has to be some more of that, on Saturday if Texas is going to be successful in those spots. But Evan,
one other key, and I know we're way over. One other key, Georgia has had a challenge at home of getting the Greek life section to fill in before kickoff, right? So there's a Greek life section at 300 level of students, fraternities. They're all partying. They get there, but it's been like usually like through, maybe halfway through the first quarter.
Okay.
Georgia is solving that this week by having the lead singer of Widespread Panic sing the national anthem to get all the frat bros in there. So I think that's a underrated key to the game.
Underrated. I mean, that's a tidbit that I don't know if I'd ever would have picked up on if you hadn't shared it with us. And now I know who's singing the national anthem. So I learned a lot there in that. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a cool scene. Sanford's one of the cooler spots in the SEC. I know they kind of give y'all heck for being a wine and cheese crowd, and I think in the last couple of years y'all have definitely proven the opposite to be true. So yeah, it won't be easy on that Texas offense. But John, I'm sure you're going. Could you just yell a little bit louder on third downs, just for your guys over here? Pack's your boy too now, so you kind of got to look out for us and and our happiness. But
yeah, don't worry.
3 jewels in their seats. Golly, there we go.
Don't worry. I will. I'll represent you guys as you would want to represent me. If the roles were reversed.
Careful, brother. Careful out there. But no, it's gonna be fun, man. And so again, enjoy the game, John. I imagine Texas takes 12, 15, maybe 20,000 tops over there. They're going to be some fans to travel. Woodcrest, I'll say this real quick. I think this is all dependent upon his youngest son and what his future looks like as far as a player, maybe a coach.
It depends on his son, but it mostly depends on the future of college football.
Yeah.
I think Kirby Smart he said publicly, he said publicly that he had thought about giving up coaching a couple of times. And I think it's, there's only so much at some point you make that kind of money and you work those hours and you have a son who, maybe he wants to coach somewhere, but I think there's only so much you can take of, do conference championships matter anymore? Are we turning conference championship when we get into a play-in? Does the SEC and Big Ten form their own super league? I think at some point, if you're a guy like Kirby and you started when you were literally watching VHS tapes and charting plays by hand on a big legal pad, I think that's where you started, and now you're dealing with all this. I think at some point it gets tough.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the whole coaching world. It's tough out there. I will say, Evan, if you act like you're my boy for 2 weeks and then you hop on there the second the clock hits 0 and you're calling me an MFer and every other word, you're going to get blocked, brother. You're my boy, but I hadn't seen that side of Evan yet, so you don't act surprised. And again, when I block this 24 hours, you're back in the good graces of a ghost. So appreciate it, guys. Thanks for being here. Like the video if you haven't done so. Evan, go subscribe to Inside Texas right now for $1. We'll pop that up there again for you, Evan, just so you know it's a real, we got a promo and everything, Evan. It's right there for you. That is InsideTexas.com. I expect a subscription from Mr. Evan Grimes I'll give you a half hour. All right. But until then, guys, thanks for watching. Big weekend of SEC ball. Got OU, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, old blood, new blood in the SEC. John, Pack, thank you, gentlemen. Y'all have a good rest of your evening.